All right. Hey, I'm so happy to be with all of you today. I'm so happy to get a chance to talk to you. I hope and I believe that this information is going to be incredibly useful to you. I think it will be helpful to you. It will be helpful to your children. Um, if you are, I know we have all different kinds of people here. I know we have mothers, and I know we have fathers, and I know we have other family members, some grandparents, some brothers and sisters of someone on the autism spectrum. And of course, I know that we have professionals, educators, therapists. So this is for all of you. Definitely, if you are an educator or a therapist or professional, I feel a kinship with you because we love the same kids. But at the same time, I do want to say that for those of you who are parents, I am just exquisitely aware that there is something that you bring to the table with your child that simply cannot be matched by another living soul on the planet. You have a kind of a love, a lifelong dedication, a commitment, and even a day in, day out experience and knowledge about your own child that nobody else has. You bring something really special to the table. And I know if you are a parent, you may sometimes feel pushed aside or not listened to, or maybe even sometimes not equipped. But I just want you to know that from my point of view, you're the best thing that has ever happened to your child. And you are not in the way, you are the way. And that's why we take special focus for working with and helping with parents, because they're the ones who are the keys. I've seen this time and time again over my decades in this field, which is when a parent changes how they are with their child, that's when the kids make the biggest change. So this is, like I said, this is for everybody: parents, professionals, family members, but definitely a special focus on parents as the key players in your child's life and in your child's future. So I think you guys know who I am, but let me tell you a little more about me. My name is Raun Kaufman. I am the author of a book called Autism Breakthrough, and I am also the director of global education at a nonprofit organization here in the United States called the Autism Treatment Center of America. And we are working very closely with Embrace Autism, based in Singapore and throughout Asia. And they, by the way, I wouldn't be here at all today if it weren't for all the work of the people at Embrace Autism bringing this to you. They're really working very hard to bring the Sunrise program to Asia, to all the countries of Asia. So no matter where you are, I'm really excited for you have a chance to watch this. My name is Raun Kaufman. I'm the author of the book Autism Breakthrough. I'm the director of global education at the Autism Treatment Center of America, which is a global nonprofit organization based in the United States that does a program called the Sunrise program, which we're going to talk a bunch about today. And I think there's some techniques from that that can be enormously helpful to you. We're working so closely with Embrace Autism that has just moved heaven and earth to try and make this happen, as well as to bring the Sunrise program to countries throughout Asia. Embrace Autism, an Asia-based nonprofit for bringing the Sunrise program and autism help to parents and families and educators throughout Asia. So I'm very happy about that. Let me just say also as well, I was explaining when I got cut off the initial start of the Sunrise program. It wasn't created in a lab, wasn't created by a team of doctors. It was two parents who had a little boy who was diagnosed with severe autism. And when I say severe, I mean he had a tested IQ below 30. He had no language, no eye contact, no interpersonal communication or interest, actually. And very much in his own world. He would spend hours and hours each day rocking back and forth, flapping his hands in front of his eyes. And he would do these kind of repetitive behaviors that I know you're all familiar with. And he would do this for hours each day. And his parents were told not only was this really severe, but this was how he was going to be for the rest of his life. There wasn't much improvement to be expected, except maybe one day he might be able to dress himself or to eat with silverware. But that was kind of the ceiling of what they could look forward to. And they were told when he gets a little older, they're going to want to put him in an institution or a facility, group home, to take care of him. And these parents did not do that. They did not listen to that. They took him home and they they created actually from scratch and in diametric opposition to all the traditional approaches. They created what's now known as the Sunrise Program. It was a home-based program. It was a very much child-centered program, focused on the child leading the way rather than trying to force the child to conform to particular behaviors. It was really quite incredible what they did. And they called it the Sunrise Program, but they spelled it Sonrise, like not the sun in the sky, but the son of two parents, because, hey, he was their son. Of course, we work with boys and girls and men and women now, but that's how it started. And they did this. They worked with him for a little over 3 years. And at the end of that period, he underwent complete emergence from his autism, literally without any trace of his former condition. No one knew his past. His friends had no idea. His teachers. Ultimately, people got to know about it because his father wrote a book called Sunrise: The Miracle Continues, and that was turned into an NBC television movie, and that was seen by many millions of people around the globe. And so I know that's like hard to get your head around that story, right? But I didn't tell you the best part of the story yet, because the little boy in that story is me. I am that guy. I am that guy that made that journey. I am that guy that was told that I would never be able to speak or communicate or interact with people. Certainly never to have this discussion with you guys today. So I'm honored to be here. I'm excited to be here. I also know that you're, especially if you're a parent, you're on in some way, even if you're not on the exact same path as my parents took, you're on some version of that path. So I cheer you on. I respect you for that. And I really hope and believe that what we're going to talk about will be helpful to you. So let's jump right into that. So what I want to say about this, because I think this is a really important place to start, is that everything, when we're having a Sunrise Program approach, this is going to sound different, which is everything is based on this idea that the children show us the way in first, and then we show them the way out. Okay, and it's very important that it happens in that order, because everybody loves the second half of that sentence, right? Everyone wants to show the child the way out, get him to change his behavior, stop doing this, do more of this, learn to speak, fix this missing skill that's missing, right? All this stuff. And then, hey, nothing wrong with wanting to help our children, help them communicate or improve or interact with the world in a way that's more helpful for them. Nothing wrong with that. That's, of course, we want to help you with that as well. However, it's really important to understand this idea that it starts not with showing our children all that stuff, but actually with letting them show us the way into their world, show us the way to reach them first. That's the step that everybody's skipping. Guys, listen, that's the step that everybody's skipping. That step, the child shows us the way in first. Okay, and that goes to a key idea that's going to be different about the Sunrise Program, about everything I'm talking about, which is that this isn't it's not a behavioral program. Some programs even have the name behavior in the program. We are not a behavior-based program, right? In fact, we don't really focus on behaviors at all per se, right? So this idea, oftentimes when people approach our kids, they're trying to think, hey, how do we stamp out the behaviors we don't want and train in the behaviors we do want? We don't even ask that question. Can you believe that? We don't even ask that question. We ask a different question. We don't ask, how do we change this child's behavior, or how do we change this adult's behavior? We ask, how do we create a relationship with this child or adult? And then how do we help this child or adult want to and be able to create relationships with other human beings, right? Human interaction. Human interaction is the key, right? Because autism is not a behavioral disorder. Our kids behave differently, of course. That's a symptom. Autism is not a behavioral disorder. It's a social relational challenge at its core. Social relational challenge, right? If you look at even all the diagnostic criteria for autism, right? Things like low eye contact, lack of communication, repetitive behaviors in their own world, all these things, these are social relational challenges at their core. And so rather than us trying to stamp out symptoms, which actually, when you stamp out a symptom by trying to stop it, a symptom of autism, not only do you not address and really help the autism, that's one thing, but also these symptoms are important. And when you stamp them out, you actually alienate the child at the very moment when it's so important to create and coax the child's willing connection, participation, and interaction. So you actually disrupt the relationship the very moment when you want to be building it, right? This is key. I feel like autism is one of the most understood disorders or challenges on the face of the earth. It's deeply misunderstood, and as a result, our kids are deeply misunderstood. And as a result of our kids being deeply misunderstood, they're approached in a way that doesn't address the core issues and is deeply alienating and difficult for our kids, right? So we want to come at it from a different point of view, right? Rather than trying to force our kids to conform to a world that they don't yet understand, we want to start by entering their world first. Entering their world first. That's the first thing we want to do, right? And then a whole universe of change is possible. It's really quite incredible. Now, what does that mean when I say we enter the child's world first? We join them in their world. What does that even mean, right? It sounds like an interesting concept. How does it play out in practice? This is key because in practice, one of the first things we start by teaching people to do is it's a technique called joining. Now, joining, even as I explain it to you, which I'm about to, it's going to seem really different than everything else that you've heard about. Not only different, probably opposite. So what joining is that when a child does a repetitive behavior, maybe they like to line up little cars. Maybe they like to make the same sound over and over again. They go, wee, wee, wee. Maybe they do that. Maybe they run back and forth over and over again, right? Maybe they drop little things in front of their eyes. Maybe they repeat their favorite line from a movie over and over again. Or maybe if they're highly verbal, they don't do any of those things, but they have a favorite subject like science fiction or vacuum cleaners or cars or the weather that they love to talk about and can talk about for a long, long time, right? So all of those things, right? Everyone's trying to stop those things. Everyone's trying to minimize those things, right? But not only with joining do we not stop those behaviors, we actually join in with and participate in those same behaviors that everybody's trying to stop. I know, right? Sounds crazy. I know if you've never tried it, I can really understand you being like, oh, hold on a second. Isn't that gonna actually make everything worse? Like if a child's flapping his hands, I flap with them, or lining up cars and I line up with them, or they're repeating a line from their favorite movie and I repeat it with them, isn't that gonna make him do it more? Right? And this, by the way, if you're thinking that, you're not the first person to have ever thought that, right? People used to tell my mom the same thing when she was working with me. Did you know that? The same thing. So one of the things I used to do was I would take kitchen plates and I would spin them over and over again back when I had autism, right? And I would spin them. And people told my mom, you got to take the plate away. You got to stop her. You got to prevent her from doing that, prevent him from doing that, etc. You got to show him that it's wrong. It's inappropriate, right? And she didn't listen to them. No, she didn't. She got her own plate. She sat down next to me and she would spin her own plate with me. And by the way, as soon as she started doing that, what did everybody say? This is the worst. This is worse than doing nothing. This is worse than doing nothing. You're actually going to reinforce the very behaviors you're trying to change. You're going to make him do it more, which of course she started laughing when she heard that because she's like, you mean more than 8 hours a day? I think I can handle it. So the thing is, right, is she didn't listen to this, and she understood early on actually that this was a deep, deep misunderstanding of autism, right? That if we, let's say we were supposing it were true, that if we joined our children in this, that would make them do it more. That would mean that our children are looking at us, taking their cues from us, watching what we do and then doing it more. And guess what? If our kids were doing that, they wouldn't be diagnosed with autism. Really key. They wouldn't be diagnosed with autism. So the whole idea that this is going to make our kids do it more is it profound misunderstanding of the basic tenets of how autism works and how our kids work, right? And this was borne out in reality, because what happened was my mom spun those plates with me. First time I ever started looking at her, the first time I smiled at her, and then the first time I started including her in my play and interacting with her. All of that came from her joining me in that plate spinning activity and not stopping me. Right? Now, I'm not claiming that that by itself fixed everything. I didn't then start speaking in complete sentences and become toilet trained overnight, because that's not what joining is for. Joining is not for, it's not some magical cure-all. What joining is a key relationship creating, relationship building technique for a child or adult that has the most difficulty creating those relationships. Right? Now, again, you might think, oh, maybe that was a fluke, what your mom did with you, but maybe it wouldn't work that way with other kids, which would also be a fair criticism if we hadn't been doing this for almost 40 years with children and adults from every inhabited continent on Earth, from all over the world. Young kids, 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 12-year-old, 22-year-olds, 35-year-olds, right? People labeled severe and people labeled mild, people who are pre-verbal or semi-verbal, people who are highly verbal. We've done it with all those kids and adults, and guess what? Same thing every time. The more we join, the two things happen. First, and most importantly, I would argue, these kids start to become interested in us. They look at us more. They let us in more. They open their doors to us. They feel safe. They trust us. We get a rapport going with them. We build this relationship that's missing, right? And secondly, guess what happens when we do that? When we do that, they stop doing the behaviors. They start doing them less and less and interacting with us more and more. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying that we do it to trick them into stopping the behaviors. In fact, that's the opposite of what we're trying to do. We're not playing a game with our kids and trying to trick them, right? That's not the idea. The idea is we're coming from a sincere place. We're saying, hey, I love you. And so you know what that means? I love what you love. You love lining up cars. I love lining up cars. You love that line from the movie Pinocchio. I love that line from the movie Pinocchio. You love talking about weather patterns. I love talking about weather patterns, right? And guess what that is? You know what that is, guys? That is building a relationship around a common interest. And guess what? That's not an autism thing. That's a human thing, right? Now, it's especially applicable to autism because this is a component that's missing from our kids' lives and development. But listen, it may be new to autism. It's not new to the human race. People have been creating relationships this way for thousands, tens of thousands of years. And so it's really important to understand this component. This is what we're trying to do. Instead of trying to force our kids to conform to a world that they do not yet understand, and by doing so, pushing them, freaking them out, alienating them, breaking trust with them, right? Instead of doing all that, we're entering their world. We're saying we love what they love. I'm interested in what you're interested in. I'm fascinated by what you're fascinated by. I care about what you care about. And we build a relationship that way. And guess what? It works. It works whether you're talking about a 2-year-old or a 32-year-old. It works, right? And again, when I say it works, I'm not saying it's a cure-all for everything. I'm talking about when it works, I'm saying it works to create that relationship. But when you have that relationship, that's the platform upon which all future progress is made, right? Because when you have that relationship, hey, then your child's interested in what you have to say and in connecting with you. Then you can teach your child to be toilet trained. Then you can help your child to speak and then eventually speak in complete sentences, right? You can do that when you have your child's willing engagement. You can't force feed it though. Can't force it down your child's throat. That's never going to get us there. Yes, if you force your child to do a behavior over and over again, with some kids with autism, it will get them to do that behavior. But it doesn't actually help them to start to cross the bridge from their world to our world. We got to think big picture here. I always say that one of my biggest jobs, actually, when I'm working with parents and educators, family members, is to help people see the big picture instead of the small picture. right? The small picture says, what's that behavior? That behavior looks weird. How do I stop it or change it? The big picture says, hey, my child has autism. I want to help them to cross the bridge from their world to my world and want to be a part of my world. Then I can help them with all that stuff. That's the big picture. And if I want to help them cross the bridge to our world, I got to cross the bridge to their world first, build a connection with them, metaphorically take their hands, and then guide them with their willing engagement back to my side of the river or whatever I'm on the other side of, right? So that's the big picture. We don't want to lose sight of the big picture, because the big picture is what's going to determine our child's future, not the small picture. You get your child to stop one behavior, that's not going to change their life. You get them to follow an order, one piece of instructions, that's not going to change their life either. You want to change their life, you got to work on the big picture, right? And by the way, you work on the big picture, you solve the big picture, those small picture things get solved. So that's the awesome thing. You work on the small picture, does not solve the big picture. You work on the big picture, it solves all the little small pictures, right? So that's important for us to keep in mind as we go through this. So that's joining, okay? Joining is key. Now, let me say one other thing about joining that I think is really important. This is something I dive into deep detail in the full lecture, and we have an entire class on helping you learn how to join in the startup course. Now, you might ask, what in the world is a startup course? Well, I just want to tell you really briefly, we have a course we normally run at our center right here in the United States. I'm talking to you from my office in Massachusetts in the United States. And normally people would come here for a 5-day training program for parents and for educators and professionals, and they would learn all the techniques, all the fundamentals of the Sunrise program, and really have a working system that they can go back home and utilize with their child during the time. Look, whether your child's in school, no matter where your child is, there's time throughout the day when your child's around. You have time with your child. Why not make use of that time to really make a difference in your child's future? So that's what we do. We focus on all that. And one of the first things we teach is joining in a much more detail than I'm just scratching the surface of it. For instance, I haven't explained exactly how to join in different activities, the more complex and verbal activities or the less complex and nonverbal activities. What's the best way to join? What's the best position to get in when you do it? Because that's a discussion for another day. But this is something that we spend a fair amount of time on in the startup, and then we go on to, once you have your child's willing engagement, now how do you teach your child all the skills you want to teach them? Now, the reason I'm highlighting that to you just right now is I'm going to come back to it later, but the reason I'm highlighting it right now is because normally you would have to fly to the United States for the startup course, but you do not have to do that. All you have to do is you have to get yourself to Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. That's it. Get yourself to Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, right? And I'm looking down because I have some dates written down here. So from November 13th through 17th, that's when the course is. And I'll talk more about that later and how you can be a part of that. It's easier than you might imagine, and Embrace Autism has worked very hard to make that easier for you. But I want to make sure you were aware of that. So coming back to joining, one of the things we can dive in deeper detail is explaining an analogy that makes it clear why joining works so well. And what I'll do now is I'm just going to give you a sort of a brief version of it, because I still think it's helpful for you to hear this piece, because it gives you a deep understanding of what it's like for our children and why joining works as well as it does. So here we go. You ready? This is key. Many people tell me that this is a light bulb moment for them with their child and understanding their child. Imagine this, okay? Imagine I'm you. That might be hard to do. Maybe you have hair, so that might be difficult, but bear with me a second. Imagine that I'm you and you're tired, you're exhausted, you've had a really difficult week, you're just completely spent, and it feels like everybody wants something from you. But then you get a day to yourself. You finally get a day. Someone else is going to take care of the house, the kids. Finally get a day, and you're thrilled. Okay, you get to do what you need to do to de-stress and decompress and feel better, something that you enjoy, something that matters to you. So you go to a local park in whatever city or town that you live in. It's great. It's deserted. There's pretty much nobody there. You sit down on a park bench. It's a beautiful day out. Ah, it's great. And you're going to do, again, your favorite thing, the thing that really relaxes you, makes you feel good. And let's say that is for you, I'm just making this up, reading science fiction books, books about outer space and stuff like that, stories, right? Novels about outer space, right? So this time though, you've had such a difficult week. You're like, hey, I need to really, really relax myself. So I'm gonna get a book I've already read. I'm actually gonna get my favorite book by my favorite author. I'm gonna take that out. I'm gonna read. I'm gonna enjoy myself. So you sit on the park bench. You take the book out. You start to read, and hey, it works. You start to get into the book. You're not thinking about all the stuff from the week. You're not feeling overwhelmed. No one's yelling at you. You're just busy doing what you enjoy doing, and you start to feel better and better. And then about an hour into that, when you're really feeling good, getting into your book, some guy comes up to you, you know, maybe some loud, bald American guy, right? Comes up to you and is like, "Hey, what's up, man? How you doing? Hey, listen, I've been watching you for a while. You've been like, woo, reading that book for an hour at least. And I tell you, it's like, it must be really lonely doing that, and you're not even hanging out with anyone. Listen, there's a great cinema just down the street. It's better to do something more social. At least see a movie. I'll pay. Hey, I'll buy the tickets. Let's put the book down. We'll walk over there. We'll go to the cinema. We'll go see a movie. It'll be great." And you're like, remember, you're just finally getting to a place where you're not so stressed. So you turn to me and you're like, "Sir, hey man, thanks for the offer. I'm sure you mean well, but listen, I've had a really hard week. I need to just do what I need to do to decompress me, feel better. And actually, I don't even like movies, so I don't even really want to go to the movie anyway. Even if I had the day to myself. So thank you for the offer. No thanks. I'm going to continue reading my book." And I'm like, so weird that you're not listening to me. I thought I explained myself. Maybe I just need to explain it a little better and really, really get your attention. I didn't get enough. So this time I get right in front of you. I push your book aside. I go, "Hello, hello, look at me. Eye contact. Over here, over here. Come on, let's put the book down. Let's go see a movie. It's starting soon. We gotta hurry up. Let's put the book down. Let's go." Now you're getting a little upset with me and kind of had enough of this. And you're like, "Hey, sir, seriously, I need you to back off. I already told you, I don't want to go to the movies. I don't even like movies, okay? I don't want to do it. And I don't want to go with you. So, okay, please, let me be by myself. I've had a hard week. I just want to read my book. Can I just read my book in peace?" And then, "I'm so sorry. I'm embarrassed. I guess I should have realized what the problem was. But now I see it. The problem is your book, right? And it's pretty clear, you're kind of obsessed with it. It's hard for you to take your attention away from it. You're just looking at it. But I think if I can just get the book out of your hands, kind of take that away from you, then you'll be able to pay attention to me. I'm sure you'll go to the movies with me." So this time I kind of tiptoe up to you, sneak up. I reach over your shoulder. I grab the book out of your hand, and you're like, "Hey, give me that back." And I'm like, I hold the book up like this. I go, "Hey, you will get the book back after you come see a movie with me." Does that sound a little familiar to you guys? Maybe a little bit. Now, I know when you're watching this, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure it out that this is not going to work. In fact, next week, let's say I come by again, if you see me around, you're probably going to get your book and run the other way. Right? But it's also important to understand another piece of this equation, which is, even though that's your reaction to me, my intentions are good. I'm trying to be helpful. I'm trying to make life better for you. I'm trying to be a good person, trying to assist you, trying to make your life good. So I'm not trying to make your life difficult. I'm trying to help you. But you can't read my mind, right? So you don't know all my good intentions. All you know is that I'm in your face, and I keep sending you this message. Here's the message. Even though I'm not using these exact words, here's the message. Stop doing what you want. Do what I want. Stop doing what you want. Do what I want. Over and over again. And hey, everybody, this is the message that our kids hear from us every single day and every hour of every day. Right? Stop doing what you want, do what I want. Now, like me in the example, we our intentions are good, right? We're not doing this to be harsh with our kids, make life difficult for them. We're doing this to help them. We're doing this because we love them. We're doing it out of love. But remember, your child also, like you, is not a mind reader, cannot read your mind, does not know all about your reasons and your good intentions behind it. They only hear that message from you. Stop doing what you want, do what I want. Right? Now, let me pause for a moment and highlight two things that are going on for our children that I think are really important to pay attention to in this context. One is that our children have what could be called a sensory integration disorder or a sensory processing challenge. That basically means the part of their brain that filters sensory information. I'm talking about what they see, what they hear, even what touches their skin. That part is like very weak at the moment. By the way, it doesn't have to be weak forever. It's something we can work on. But right now, it's extremely weak. It barely works at all. So what's happening with almost all of our kids is that everything is coming in, all the sights, all the noise, even things like the clothes touching your child's skin. That's all coming in at maximum volume, right? When we tell our children, pay attention, which of the 50 things that are bombarding them are they supposed to be paying attention to right now, right? You know how you probably, some of you have kids, right? They like to take off their clothes, run around naked, and you're like, oh, why do they do that? They know they have to keep their clothes on, right? They're not trying to misbehave. They're trying to get a few minutes of relief because for a lot of our kids, just the clothes touching their skin is like nails running down their skin every second. And that's just touch. That doesn't even talk about all the sounds they're hearing, all the lights and images that are hitting their eyes. That also doesn't even address smells that they're smelling or tastes that they're tasting, right? So this is what's happening. Our child's completely overloaded by this all the time. If they're awake, this is what's happening, right? Number two, our children often have great difficulty recognizing patterns that you and I take for granted. So if I say to you, hi, I'm Raun, nice to meet you, and I go like this, you shake my hand. I don't have to tell you to shake my hand. You don't have to even really barely think about it, right? But if I go, hi, I'm Raun to your child, I'm just a guy with his hand out, right? Because these patterns of, hey, this follows this, and this is how this works, they aren't registering in the same way in our kids' brains. And what that means, it doesn't just mean that they don't know what to do when someone wants to shake their hands, or they don't know what to do in a conversation, or they aren't reading facial expressions in the same way, so that they don't know what your facial expressions mean. So all of this stuff that's happening, it doesn't just mean that they're missing that information. If you don't recognize patterns like that, it means you often don't know why anything's happening and how everything's going to progress and why one thing follows another thing. And when that happens, everything feels incredibly chaotic and out of control. And this is why so many of our kids so often are seeking control. They're actually seeking control. Right? One of the things, I'll just pause and say this, these two pieces that are additional concepts for you to be aware of. One is that it is any chance you have to give your child control is going to be beneficial. Of course, I'm not talking about something that's dangerous, like running in the street or something where they're doing that might be really hurting themselves. But there's many, many situations where they're not doing one of those things that because we're parents and we're adults, we try and exert control. And sometimes when we see a child who's very controlling, we try to exert more control because we think, hey, we got to break this kid of this behavior so they know how to operate in the world, right? But that is highly counterproductive. We want to first give control. Give control. We want to give our kids control, right? Again, where it's not dangerous, where it's safe. There's 100 ways you can do this every day without ever compromising your child's safety. 100 different ways. Maybe they want to wear a yellow shirt every day. So buy them 6 yellow shirts and let them do that instead of insisting they wear the shirt you want them to wear. Maybe they want to eat something with a spoon instead of a fork that you usually eat with a fork. Let them eat it with the spoon. Maybe they want to do a particular behavior that's not hurting anybody. You stop them. Let them do that. right? They're trying to get the control, not because they're trying to be difficult, but because they're not recognizing the patterns. So everything seems unpredictable and out of control. And again, this is not their desire, your child or adult's desire to seek control in that situation is not an autism issue. It's a human issue. Any human being, with or without autism, when they're in a situation where things feel out of control, maybe they're in a new country, a new job, a new family, a hospital, different things like this. When people feel like they're in that situation that's out of control, almost everybody with neurotypical and non-neurotypical seeks control. That's a human thing. So our children, right? Our children are not behaving abnormally. They're behaving extremely normally in response to this situation that they're in, this really challenging situation. Okay. The other thing I want to say about this, and this goes back toward an additional reason why we want to join and why we want to give control, is everything you do with your child, for good or for ill, right? Everything you do for your child, with your child, every interaction you have with them, you are the ambassador of the neurotypical world. What that means is, imagine you've never met an American before. Let's just say, right? You've never met an American. You meet your first American, and he's really loud and rude to you, right? What's the first thing you think? Americans, why are they so loud and rude? Right? Let's say you meet your very first American, and he's really sweet and helpful to you. What do you think? Those Americans, they're so sweet, so helpful, right? Neither one of those is right, and neither one of those is wrong, right? Because there's rude Americans, there's helpful Americans, right? That just like in every other country, right? They're just people. But you're still making an assessment based on this person or a small group that you've interacted with. Your child is doing the same thing, but not in regards to what country you're from, but in regards to which world you're in, right? You are in the neurotypical world. And remember, we want our children to cross the bridge, to want to cross the bridge from their world to our world. That's what we want. That's crucial. That's key. So we want them to do that. We want them to want to do it. So everything we do, they're making assessments about, hey, what's it like in that neurotypical world? Right? If we stop them, if we try to control them when they need control, if we push them to do things that they don't understand why they're being pushed to do, that tells them that our world is pushy, coercive, judgmental, and forces them to do pointless things, right? And yet, if we are someone who doesn't judge our children, enjoys them, loves what they love, joins them in what they love, gives them control when they need control, then we're a different kind of ambassador. That tells our children, oh, hey, this is a world that cares about what I care about, that values me for me, that is interested in what I'm interested in, that is fun with me, that is enjoyable, that is approving of me, that is celebratory of me. And yes, maybe a world that sometimes asks me to do challenging things, for sure, but not for no reason. And when I'm asked to do something challenging, it's in a fun way that I can relate to and connect to, right? So that if you're that kind of ambassador, your child's gonna cross that bridge. They're gonna run across that bridge from their side of the river, from their world to your side of the river, the neurotypical world, right? So we just have to keep that in mind. Everything we do, we are the ambassadors of the neurotypical world. What kind of ambassador do we want to be? And we want to take every instance we can to give control. Give control, as long as it's not dangerous, to our child. The more in control they feel, guess what? The more in control they feel, the less controlling they're going to be. I know that's crazy, right? Seems like stop them from being controlling. You got to teach them, take the control back. That's not how it works. That's, by the way, not how it works with any human being, with or without autism. Someone needs control, you grab it back from them. You know what they do? They pull harder, they get more controlling. That's just what your child does. But you give them control, they start to feel secure. Then they can give up some of the control. They can step outside their comfort zone. Whether, again, that's true for a neurotypical person, very true for our kids. Now, let me come back to this analogy, okay? Because remember, you're trying to get me to go to this the cinema, and you're doing it in this way, and I'm like, go away, and all that's happening. So now imagine you're reading this book. Same, it's a science fiction book. Remember, this is your favorite book you're reading. And I come over. I'm a different American, still bald, but way less annoying. And I come over to you, and this time I walk over to you, and I don't even say anything to you. And you know why? I don't say anything to you because I brought my own book with me, and I'm coming to this bench to read my own book. So I sit down next to you, I start reading, and you're reading, and I'm reading. That goes on for a while. You glance over at me. You can't believe what you're seeing, because this guy who's reading next to you, it's not just that he's reading the same book as you're reading. And this is your favorite book of all time. He's sitting there reading it. Really, think about how you would react in that situation. You wouldn't care? You'd walk away? Of course you wouldn't. You'd have to say something. That's how we all are. So you tap me on the shoulder. You're like, sir, I'm sorry to bother you. Just noticed you're reading the same book as me. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I am. This is actually my favorite book. You're like, shut up. It's my favorite book. And I'm like, no way. Oh my gosh. Did you read the last book by this author? And you're like, yes, I read it. It was so good. And I'm like, oh, could you believe that ending? And you're like, oh, that ending was unbelievable. And I'm like, do you know when his next book's coming out? And you're like, oh, I think in a few months. And we get in this whole conversation about this subject that we both care about, that matters to us, this author, these types of books, right? And we build a connection, we build a friendship. This is how it works, folks. This is how a lot of our friendships have been made. This might even be how you built your first connection with the person you ended up marrying, right? Maybe you both loved music. Maybe you both loved sports. Maybe you both loved art, right? So this matters. Now, that's all that happens that time. I say, hey, eventually it's time for me to leave. I go, hey, it's awesome to meet you, and I leave. Next week, I come back and I see you there again. So this time, I say, hey, how you doing? We sit down, I read, you read, we talk a little, we read a little. Same thing happens over the next 4 weeks until that fourth Saturday comes, and we're sitting there and we're reading, and it's time for me to go again. I go, oh, hey, I gotta go. I don't know if you know this, but actually next weekend, the movie version of this book is coming out in the cinemas, coming out in the theaters. So I don't know, it's just a crazy idea. What about next week? Instead of meeting here and reading this next weekend, we just meet at the cinema, go see the movie version of the book. What do you think? So now, if you notice, my end goal was the same, but as the first instance, but the way that I got there was dramatically different, right? In the first instance, I stamped out what you love, tried to drag you my way. And in the second instance, I built a relationship with you around our common interest, and then there was room for me to ask you to go my way in a way that makes sense to you. You see, this is the keystone. This is what we can do, right? Because oftentimes, right, we see something our child's doing, and as soon as it starts to feel good for them, we don't know this necessarily, we stamp it out, we try and stop them, and we say, stop doing what you want, do what I want. Stop doing what you want, do what I want. Instead of, oh my gosh, what are you doing? That looks fascinating. I'm going to do it. It looks so good. I'm going to get into it because I love what you love. I care about what you care about. Okay. This is how it works, right? Autism is a social relational challenge at its core. Yes, some of our children have other issues. Some of our children have digestive issues and immunological issues. Absolutely. But at the core of autism, including all those diagnostic criteria, is social relational challenge. If we can help them with that, that's big picture thinking. We help them with the big picture, the small pictures get solved, right? That's the big picture. We want to help our child form relationships with other people and want to form relationships with other people. Now, I'm going to say this. I'm going to say just a couple more things about this, because everything that I was just talking about, joining your child in their repetitive activities, really joining, not trying to subtly get them to, not trying to get their attention, not calling their name, not trying to do it extra loud so that they look at you, not talking the whole time they're doing it, just doing it with them until they initiate an interaction by looking at you, walking over to you, giving you a toy, whatever. Or if they are a highly verbal person, They'll leave you more space in the conversation instead of just talking at you, right? You wait for that to happen. You wait for that to happen. We're building this connection. We're building this rapport. So if you join them, if you give them control, and if you really keep in mind, how can I be the best ambassador of the neurotypical world? I want to be an ambassador, makes this world look appealing instead of repellent, right? So that's important. So if you, by the way, if you just walk out of this webinar right now and that's all you do, you have crossed the Rubicon. You have climbed the mountain. You have done something really crucial. Now I do want to say that's not the whole Sunrise program, right? The Sunrise program is that's the everything I just described is like the first key steps. What we then do, which we don't have time to talk about today, but I just want to preview it for you. We go into deep detail in it in the startup course, is we show you how to enter your child's world, cross the bridge, join them, give them control, be a good ambassador to them, and then help them cross the bridge back to ours, which we haven't even gotten to that part yet. And that is where we wait for something that we call a green light when our child, that's what I was describing, where your child shows some interest in you of their own volition. And then we use those green lights to build interactive social activities to help them get better and better at interacting. And we do something else called using the child's motivation, where we show you how to pinpoint what's most interesting to your child, what they most have an independent interest in, independent motivation for, and then create an activity around it, not importantly, not as a way of rewarding them. This is not a reward system, but building an activity around a subject they find interesting, whether it's Teletubbies or Disney characters or physical play like wrestling, or a subject they like outer space, and building a special kinds of activities around that. And we call them interest-based activities or motivation-based activities. And using that to then, during those green lights, when your child's actually interested, helping them cross the bridge from their world to yours. So we go deep into that. There's many techniques to do that we can help you do. But remember, it's all in the context of being a good ambassador, giving them control when they need control, and first crossing the bridge, joining them in their world first. Okay. So I hope that was helpful to you. I want to I want to say one other thing, just a really brief, which is that you may have been told a lot of things about your kids. Right? Listen, I've been where your kids are. I've been there. Right? As a formerly severely autistic person, I have been there, so I know what your children are capable of, and it is so much more than you've been told. And the only reason I was helped, the only reason I can talk to you today is because two people, my parents, believed in me when no one else on earth believed in me. And so if you're a parent, I also know what you're capable of. And it is also so much more than you've been given credit for. If you have the tools in your hands, you can move mountains. You can really make a difference in your child's future. Right? And that's why it's really important not to succumb to messages you might be given about, hey, don't have too much hope for your child. Or my favorite one, be careful, you don't want to have false hope. Don't let someone else give you false hope. Here's the thing. Hope is not a promise. Hope is not a guarantee. It's not saying, hey, if you do everything I say, your child guaranteed can turn out exactly like me. Right? Now, we have had a lot of children who fully emerge from autism just like me. That has happened many times after me, but we've also had many children and adults who've made enormous progress and connected with people and lived completely different lives than they started out with, and really far outstripped their original prognosis, but still are on the spectrum. I think that's great. I don't want to have only one definition of success. People with autism bring incredible beauty and insight to our world. We're not trying to stamp all autism out. We're trying to help our children live up to their maximum potential. And oftentimes the people trying to help our children are getting in the way of their maximum potential. Not on purpose, of course. Everyone's trying to do the best they can, right? So if someone tells you, be careful, don't have hope, remember, hope's not a promise. Hope says, I believe more is possible for my child, and I'm willing to take action to help make that happen. I'm willing to take some action, right? All change needs some action, right? None of our kids can get help without action. Hope leads to action. So if you want to take action to help your child, you want to stoke that flame of hope. You don't want to stamp it out. It's only going to help you. It's only going to help your child. Okay, so let me pause there and tell you, I'm going to do a couple of things more that are in it different. The lecture part is done, but stay with me, guys, because I want to tell you do two more things. One is I'm going to just take a few minutes, tell you a little more about this startup in case you want to do it. It's such a good opportunity. And by the way, if you're in another country in Asia, and you're thinking, oh, I'll just wait till it comes here, you might be waiting a really long time. If you want to help your child, don't help your child in 5 years. Help them this year. Help them when we have it in Kuala Lumpur, because we go to different parts of the world each year in different places, and we may not reach your country for 5 or 10 years, right? So yes, if you have to fly a little bit to Kuala Lumpur, I think our kids are worth that, right? So in Kuala Lumpur, it's December 13th to, not December, November, sorry about that. November 13th to 17th. I'm going to be one of the two teachers, me and an amazing teacher named Kate C. Wild, who is also an author, actually an author of 2 books, a book called Autistic Logistics and a book called The Autism Language Launcher. We're both going to be co-teaching it together. So we will meet each other in person, everybody. How awesome will that be? Right? I get to hear you and your stories and help you with specific things with your child. We have question and answer times in that program. We focus on each different thing, everything from eye contact to verbal communication, socialization, social interaction. We also help you with challenging behaviors like hitting and pinching and biting and spitting, all of those kind of things. We address that as well. Oftentimes, we usually can address also things like toilet training and dietary intervention and some other things that come up that might be challenges or things you would like some help with. So we address a whole bunch of different things. And you know what else we do that I don't think anybody else is really doing is in addition to all those techniques that we show you how to do, and especially how to challenge your kids in these areas once you have a green light and willing interaction. In addition to that, we help you with any emotional struggles you might be having about, hey, your child's gotten an intense diagnosis or your child's doing really intense behaviors. That might be a struggle for you. It's a struggle for a lot of parents and a lot of educators. And one of the things we found is that if we can help you with the emotional side of it, you'll be much more effective at the technical side of it that we teach you. So we're going to address all of that stuff. I think a lot of you, especially those of you who are parents, but educators as well, it might be the first time ever that you feel really listened to. And it might be the first time ever that you feel like your child was really loved and celebrated for who they are instead of judged and criticized for who they aren't. So a couple of other things. It is going to be in Kuala Lumpur, as I was telling you. It's at something called the Dorset Grand Subang, in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. I'll tell you some other logistics about it. I got it on my phone here. It's 2,800 Singapore dollars, 2,800 Singapore dollars per person. That's per person, not per couple, by the way. If you sign up within the next 24 hours using the discount code that is going to be shown on that somewhere, it's the scan me. It's the sign up using a QR code on the screen that you can see right now. That gives you a discount. This price goes up from there if you don't use that code.
Discount code is 24HRQ. It's on the screen.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. You're right.
We just updated it.
Please interrupt me when I miss a key piece of information. Please. Yes, 24HRQ. That's actually a simple code. You can probably memorize it, but don't write it down. Yes, use that code. That's what gets you the best price. Also, accommodation. This was a crazy awesome deal that Embrace Autism managed to get at this place, because the hotel and the venue where we're doing the course are the same, and it's 250 Singapore dollars per person, not per night, for the entire week, right? So definitely that's a terrific opportunity. It's per person on a twin sharing basis, and it includes breakfast. That $250 a week. Further discounts are available for couples. Check the Embrace Autism website. Please keep going to the Embrace Autism website and the Embrace Autism Facebook page. They are awesome. They're here to help you. Really, they're here to help you. They actually don't make money from this. They're just volunteering because the Sunrise program really helped their kids, and they now want to bring it to other families like yours so that your child can be helped. That's why they're doing it. Also, just in case you're a really cynical, skeptical type person, just so you know, I'm on salary here at the Autism Treatment Center of America. I tell you that because I don't make more money if you sign up for the startup course. It's not like, yes, I do get a salary so I can live and pay my rent and everything, but that's not what it's about for me. If 5 of you come to the startup or 500 of you come to the startup, my financial situation is completely unchanged in that situation. But I'm not gonna lie to you, emotionally, it really matters to me. I definitely really want you to come because I know that this can help you. I know that it can help you. And obviously it's helped me. It's helped a lot of other kids and families that I deeply love and care about. Anything else I wanted to say about that? No. Am I leaving anything else out, Suzanne, about the logistics of the startup?
No, you're good.
All right, I'm good. Okay, well, we have a little bit more time here. Let's take a few questions. Suzanne, are you telling me the question? Suzanne?
There was a question from hang on, I just got to toggle the screen. Just give me a second.
Yeah, no problems.
Okay, so there was a question from a viewer saying, give me 1 second. Oh, okay. I've tried joining my child. Hang on a sec. Apologies, everyone. Okay, I've started the joining technique with my 21-month-old daughter. She has an ism of flipping through book pages. I got into my book, did the same thing, but she took my book away and did that with my book. What do I do then?
Okay, well, first of all, that's a sign of a need and a desire for control from your daughter. I'm so glad you did that. First of all, that you even joined her is awesome. So what I would do is let her take the book. Don't be like, hey, Ron said to join and I'm joining with my book, right? No, of course, if she takes it, not only let her take it, thank her for taking it. That's right. Say, oh, remember, we're the ambassador of the neurotypical world. Say, oh, thank you so much. You can have it, absolutely. And then slowly, go get another book. And what I would do also is create a little more distance. Do it from a little farther away, but not behind her so she can't see you. But do it from a bit farther away. It might be that you're doing the book right in her field of vision, and she needs to have the book when she sees that happen. By the way, that's already a good sign, though, that she's taking your book. You might say, "How is that a good sign? She's just taking my book." No, that's actually a very subtle form of interaction, right? Because what's the opposite of taking your book? The opposite of taking your book is she doesn't even notice you're there, right? Which, as we know, a lot of our kids display that, right? So what this is saying is when you joined her, she started to notice you and she started to notice your book. That's why she took your book. So that's already a wonderful thing. But yeah, I would let her have it, celebrate her, go get another one, do it from farther away.
Okay, so the next question is, my 13-year-old son has Asperger's, so he is high functioning and attends mainstream school. He has issues with flexibility, making friends, and still has a lot of sensory challenges. Should I be attending the advanced program Maximum Impact instead of startup since he's already highly verbal?
Ah, got it. Okay. So couple of things about that. I'm glad to hear that question. That's a very good question. So first of all, she's mentioning something that you guys probably have no idea about. So let me just tell you that the week after the startup, we have an advanced program. We have an advanced program for people who've already taken the startup. Now, let me say that again, for people who've already taken the startup. Oh, and by the way, in case I didn't make this clear, you don't come to the startup with your child, right? Because you're in a room full of people and you're getting classes, right? So if you're a parent or family member, whatever, you're coming with yourself, but you're not taking your child. Just want to be clear on that. That's also true for the advanced program, because you're learning, you're doing what you're doing today, exactly what you're doing. You're learning all the techniques, that you're going home and using it. And we have ongoing assistance. You can book Skype consultations one-on-one with people once you've taken the programs. You can book that so you can get additional help. But let me come back to this issue. So she's referring to an advanced program that is also in Kuala Lumpur the very next week after the startup course. There are going to be a bunch of people who are going to take both at once, which I highly recommend, because you're already there, right? You're already there. It's 2 5-day programs instead of 1 5-day programs with weekend in between. I would do that if you're able to. If you're able to, I think it's hugely beneficial. But she's asking, can she just skip the startup? Well, I'll talk to her. Hi, ma'am. You're asking if you can just skip the startup and just take maximum impact because your child is more advanced. So I want to be really clear about what the startup is. The startup is not about if your child is pre-verbal or semi-verbal or considered less advanced. It's for the startup, and the advanced programs are for the children that are deemed more verbal or more communicative. That's actually not how it works at all, because the key thing is the core techniques that you're doing, whether your child has just spoken their first word or is speaking in fluent paragraphs, you actually have to learn the fundamentals of the same techniques. Now, there are some differences, and that is why we do have a key class in the startup that we're going to have in Kuala Lumpur, where we split you up. Kate and I split you up into 2 different groups for this particular class, and it's a verbal communication class. So obviously, if your child is highly verbally communicative, that is a different thing. If we're working on verbal communication specifically, that's going to be different than a child that speaks 5 words, right? So what we do is we split you guys, and for that particular class, not for the whole program. And some of you are you're focused on helping your child get through, say their first words or say their 5th words, or help your child start to communicate in simple phrases. And the other one, we're working with whose children already speak fluently in paragraphs, etc., and helping them learn to communicate in a more social way. So it's great. It's already customized for you. It's already customized for you. You don't have to pay extra. Whichever group you're in, you can do that. We have some educators actually who will come together, like 2 educators from the same place, and they'll often split, 1 in each group, and then share the notes with each other, which we welcome you to do. So, but you can't just jump over the startup and go to maximum impact, because no matter how supposedly advanced your child is, you're not going to be advanced. The advanced program has to do with parents who are advanced and educators who are advanced, not children who are advanced, right? So no, you would still want to take the startup course. You'd want to do that. Like I said, no matter what level your child's language is at, we're going to help you in the startup. That's why we split you for that class, and the other classes are going to absolutely be applicable to you, whether your child is highly verbal or pre-verbal or semi-verbal or somewhat verbal. We've been doing this for a long time. We know how to do this so that it helps each different kind of parent, each different kind of children, different kind of child. So definitely we'll do that. I'll pause there and let room for another question. Okay, Suzanne, you want to go with another one?
Okay, the next question is, my child is already 23 years old. Is it too late?
That's a really good question. Yeah. So there's probably some of you, hopefully a bunch of you, with all different age kids and adults. So some of your kids might be 2 years old, some might be 7 years old, some might be 15, some might be 25, some might be 37, right? It is so important for you to know and understand that it is never too late. So important. Someone who says to you, oh, your child's brain is already developed, or, oh, if they haven't spoken yet, if they don't learn to speak by the time they're 7 or so, they're not going to be able to learn that. People who say these kind of things are just deeply misinformed. And actually, they're working off a very old neuroscientific model. And this is what neuroscientists used to believe, where what they used to say is the brain's kind of like cement. At the beginning, when your child's 3, 4, 5, 6, it's like wet cement. And then at around 7 or so, some say 6, some say 8, it hardens into concrete. And then that's the brain you got. So if you haven't learned to talk, you haven't learned this skill, that skill, you're up the creek without a paddle. You know what I mean? So the thing is that this is not actually what modern neuroscience says at all. What's understood now is that the brain is highly plastic, meaning malleable, throughout every stage of life. I mean, every stage, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, right? This is why if a 78-year-old man gets a stroke and loses his ability to speak, he can learn to speak again, right? Because the brain's not finished. It's always developing new neurons, building connections between the neurons. This is what we capitalize on in the Sunrise program. We capitalize on neuroplasticity, which is that the brain is capable of incredible changing growth with the proper stimulation, and proper approach. It doesn't just do that magically. It doesn't just grow and learn all these things magically. With the proper approach, that's what neuroscience says. With the proper approach, the brain is capable of extraordinary growth and change. That's what we're capitalizing on here. So that means the startup, for instance, is helpful to you, will be very helpful to you if you have a 2-year-old, a 12-year-old, a 22-year-old, a 32-year-old, or 42-year-old, etc. Really, truly. And actually, one of the last stories that I tell, not one of, the last thing that I talk about in my book, Autism Breakthrough, one of the last things I talk about is this guy named Jarir. And he was 33 years old when his mother, in those days, we were doing them in the United States, just in the United States. She flew over to the United States and she took a startup course to help her 33-year-old son, who had spent his entire life in an institution, in a home, had gotten pretty much no stimulation, not the kind of help we would want. He spoke in a few single words and had almost no eye contact, and spent about 80% of his time doing repetitive behaviors, flapping his hands and doing things like that. So she's so excited about what she learns in the startup course. She goes back, she takes him out of the home, out of the institution, brings him home. He's 33. Brings him home, starts doing the Sunrise program with him. And over the course of the next 18 months, he radically transforms. He becomes, remember, he was speaking in single words to say certain things. He was speaking in 6 to 10 word sentences. You could have conversations with him. His eye contact went from virtually non-existent to neurotypical level of eye contact, like terrific eye contact. And he went from doing these repetitive behaviors 80% of the time to doing them about 15% of the time. So it's pretty remarkable. Now, he's not like me, right? We wouldn't call him fully emerged from autism, but holy cow, he has a completely different life and a completely different relationship with his mother and with other people. So don't let someone tell you that it's too late. That our children and our adults are always capable of growth and change. That's what we're capitalizing on, like I said before. And if you come to the startup in Kuala Lumpur, you can capitalize on that.
Okay, I'm going to combine two questions now. One is, I'm a working mom. Will this program still help me because I can't quit my job? And the second question is, do I need to stop all the other therapies?
I love how you said, because you can't quit your job. Well, sorry, we're just not going to help you unless you quit your job. I'm just kidding. Hey, I don't want you to quit your job. Fair enough. So let's address both of those. Those are two excellent questions, but I'll address them both together. So first of all, the Sunrise program, the whole point of it is it's a customized and customizable program. It's a child-centered program, like I said, but it's a parent-directed program. So that means we show you how to do this. You customize it to your life. Now, you can't do nothing, right? It's not a program where you can go take the startup and just feel great about taking the startup and do nothing and have that lead to changes. Of course, it does entail some effort, right? It entails putting in some regular effort each day. However, it's completely customizable. And what I mean by that is to do it after work, after school, different things on the weekends. And we get more into that in the program. But yes, it's customizable to your life. And let me address the second part of the question, and then I want to come back to a central point that I'm going to call a big picture point, which is, can you combine it with other things? Can you do it with other things? Let me say this. You can definitely combine it with things that are designed to help your child biologically and biomedically, things like dietary intervention, even, occupational therapy, uh, things, supplementation, different things that you might be doing to help your child work really well with the Sunrise program. And I say really well because actually one of the things we're really good at helping people do is to help their children eat different kinds of foods and even take supplements they need to take without forcing them, without forcing, getting the child to do it willingly. That's what we're awesome at. That's what we do. So, so it's great for that. Now, I will say this. Let's say you're doing something like applied behavior analysis, ABA. No, they're not the same. So you can't like combine them into the same session because they're really opposites to each other. They have opposite points of view and opposite approaches. So yeah, you wouldn't, let's say, have a session from 3 to 4 where you're doing a mixed ABA Sunrise program session. That just would make no sense, and it would make no sense to the child. However, you do not have to stop what you're doing right now to do a Sunrise program, as long as you have some dedicated Sunrise program focus and time, right? Which again, at first isn't a lot. The first thing we recommend actually is to just do 15 minutes a day as a starter, and then build up to 30, and we have some things we can help you to do to build that. But that's all we're talking about at the beginning, and then building up from there. So, and here's the big picture point I was going to make, and this applies to both whether to combine it with other things and also the things of like building it around your life because you're working and stuff like that. The reason why this is so key to just get it in there, just get the Sunrise program in there, is because then you're going to start to see the benefit. Your child's going to respond to it, and you're going to start to see what happens from that. And when you see what happens to that, then you can make other decisions. Then you can make, doing Sunrise program in the afternoon, holy moly, that's working so much better than the 6 hours he's spending at school or the 3 hours he's spending in some other therapy. Maybe I want to change this. Maybe I want to shift this. But by no means do you want to even be making that decision right now. The only decision you need to make now is, do I want to learn this, start using it in any form in my house, or if you're an educator or professional, in my school or professional setting. And that's why we're coming to Kuala Lumpur, so that you can, if you decide yes to that, you can come do that and actually start seeing the benefits of it. So no, you don't have to stop anything, and you definitely don't have to quit your job. We'll show you how to customize it to your own life and your own system that you have set up now.
Okay, and just one final question. Someone says they've read your book, Autism Breakthrough. Does the 5-day program actually cover more than that, or is the book enough?
Oh, great question. Here's the thing. My book, I'm so glad you read the book, and I hope you do some of the things from the book. That would be awesome. My book is actually designed, Autism Breakthrough, in a way to be like a pre-startup. Now, I highly recommend that you read it before doing the startup. You do not have to, by the way. That's not a requirement. We're going to let you in the startup no matter what you do. Of course, we welcome everybody. But if you want to make the best use of the startup course, I would recommend reading it before then, because it is like a pre-startup. It gives you key starting points for fundamental techniques. So it's great for there. But no, it's nothing like the startup. The startup goes in all sorts of directions that I don't even talk about in the book. It also goes much deeper with the things I do talk about. And like I said, you can ask questions of us. You can get help. You can apply. You can ask questions on how to apply to specific issues that are coming up with your child. And listen, guys, you're in a room when you're in the program. You're in a room with a bunch of other people, like let's say parents, other parents, educators, other educators, who are walking the same path as you and are in the same boat as you. And that cannot be, the value of that cannot be overstated. A lot of people actually make lifelong friends and allies from this experience, and getting that cross-pollination and cross-support and help is invaluable.
Thank you, Ron. Just before we finish up, everybody just please take note. The price for the 5-day training program is 2,800 Singapore dollars if you use the discount code 24HRQ. And we now have 0% installment payments available. So don't let this be the reason you don't find help for your child. Thank you, Ron. Thank you, everybody, for joining us.
So much. Yes, I'll see you guys in November, okay? Take care.